Okay, welcome to this explainer on the Shahnameh. Today, we're diving into a magnificent, thousand-year-old epic that was written not just to tell a captivating story, but to actively rescue a fading culture. You'll see pretty quickly that this isn't just a piece of literature. It's a monumental act of preservation.
To really understand how important this is, we have to start by looking at the massive real-world stakes behind these words from the poet Ferdowsi. Imagine your entire culture just slipping away. That's exactly what was happening a millennium ago. Persia was under Arab rule, and its unique identity, its language, its history, they were all quietly fading into the shadows. So Ferdowsi essentially took up his pen to stage a linguistic rebellion. He spent decades crafting the Shahnameh just to protect that identity and breathe life back into the Persian soul.
To grasp the sheer scale of his achievement, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll cover saving the Persian identity, the mythical era, the heroic age, the historical twilight, and finally, an eternal empire. Let's walk through this multi-generational saga together.
Part 1. Saving the Persian Identity.
So before the gods and monsters enter the picture, the epic begins with a deeply human need to preserve one's roots against the ticking clock of assimilation. The Shahnameh isn't just one continuous plot, It's broken down into three distinct eras: the Mythical Age, the Heroic Age, and the Historical Age. Think of this as our overarching roadmap before we jump all the way back to the dawn of creation.
Which brings us to Part 2, the Mythical Era.
We begin in an age of incredible world-building. The curtain raises with Mars, the very first king who created the world. Under these early rulers, humanity learned the literal foundations of civilization: how to wear clothes, how to harness fire, and how to smelt metal. And in this early age, a really crucial concept emerges: Far. Far is the divine royal authority bestowed only upon legitimate, righteous kings. It's basically the ultimate mandate of heaven. And understanding Far is absolutely crucial because losing it is what triggers the very first great tragedy of our story.
Now look at this staggering contrast. Under King Jamshid, Persia enjoyed a 300-year golden age. Imagine 3 whole centuries entirely free of disease and death. But, well, arrogance always exacts a toll. When Jamshid proclaimed himself a god, the divine Far abandoned him. And into that void stepped Zahhak, a tyrant seduced by demons who stole the throne. Zahhak suffered from this terrifying curse. 2 hideous snakes actually grew out of his shoulders, and to appease them, the brains of 2 young people had to be sacrificed every single day. For a staggering 1,000 years, Persia endured a blood-soaked, pitch-black era of darkness under his rule.
But, as they say, hope always blooms in the darkest places. Enter Kaveh the blacksmith. After losing 2 of his own sons to feed Zahhak's snakes, Kaveh had completely had enough. He sparked a massive rebellion simply by tying his leather blacksmith's apron to the end of a spear. Under this makeshift but incredibly powerful banner, the people united behind the true heir, the hero Ferdowsi. They overthrew Zahhak and actually chained the tyrant deep within Mount Damavand for eternity, finally bringing the light back to Persia.
Let's move on to Part 3, the Heroic Age. This right here is the absolute heart of the Shahnameh, where we shift away from pure gods and monsters to focus on the deeply flawed, very human champions who guarded the Persian realm. And what's fascinating is the wild, magical sequence of events that had to happen just to bring our ultimate hero's parents together. We start with a boy named Zal, who is born with snow-white hair. His father literally thought it was a demonic curse and abandoned the infant on a rugged mountain cliff. But Zal was saved, and he was raised by a mystical giant bird, the Simurgh. Eventually, his repentant father finds him, brings him home, and Zal falls head over heels for the beautiful Princess Rutaba from a neighboring kingdom.
And from that love story comes Rostam. Guys, Rostam is the invincible center of this entire epic. He was so incredibly massive at birth that the Simurgh had to teach them a mystical caesarean section just to deliver him safely. Draped in leopard skin and riding Raksh, this magnificent steed that literally no one else could tame, Rostam became a living legend. Whenever the foolish kings of Persia got themselves captured by rival nations or demons, which happened a lot, Rostam was the one bailing them out, single-handedly conquering the horrific 7 trials, or Haft Khan, to rescue the kingdom. He was the ultimate living shield of Persia.
But even for an invincible shield, fate has a really cruel sense of humor. Actually, pause for a second and think about this. What happens when the ultimate hero is forced to choose between the country he's sworn to protect and his own flesh and blood? You see, long ago, Rostam shared a brief romance with a princess named Tehumene.
He left behind an armband with his seal before departing, but he never knew she actually gave birth to a son named Sohrab.
Years later, that son, Sohrab, leads an invading army into Persia. His secret ambition? To find the great father he's never met and crown him king. The Persian king, who is completely terrified of this young invader, sends his veteran champion, Rostam, to stop him. They meet on the battlefield, entirely unaware of each other's true identities. Instinctively sensing a connection, Sohrab actually sues for peace. But Rostam, who is just blinded by his duty to the state and his own pride, dismisses it as a trick. So they engage in this agonizing, desperate 3-day battle.
On the third day, Rostam strikes a fatal blow, plunging his dagger into the young warrior's chest. And as he lies there bleeding out, Sohrab delivers these devastating words. Listen to the tragic irony here. If my father knows of this, he will never forgive you. My father, Rostam, will surely avenge me.
It is only in that exact, horrifying moment that Rostam rips back Sohrab's armor and sees his own seal on the armband tied to the boy's arm. He realizes he has just struck down his most beloved son in the name of the homeland. The epic describes Rostam letting out a wail that seemed to literally shatter the world itself. It's just a profound commentary on the sheer, devastating cost of blind loyalty to the state.
That brings us to Part 4, the historical twilight. Eventually, even the invincible Rostam meets his end through betrayal, and as the veil of myth slowly lifts, we enter the harsh reality of historical decline. What's absolutely fascinating is how the Shahnameh handles this real historical trauma. In real history, Alexander the Great was a foreign invader who conquered and trampled the Persian Empire. But look at how he's depicted in the Shahnameh. He's written in as Iskandar, a half-brother of the Persian royal family. So why does this matter? Because framing their ultimate conqueror as family was a brilliant, powerful psychological coping mechanism. It was a way to preserve Persian cultural pride by absorbing even their worst defeats into their own continuous, unbroken history.
But you know, reality eventually catches up, and we see those final days mapped out here. There was a brilliant, magnificent revival in the 6th century under the wise Sasanian ruler Khosrow Anushirvan, where art and culture really bloomed. But no physical empire lasts forever. In the 7th century, the newly rising Muslim Arab armies invaded. It all culminated in the tragic Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, where the Persian army was entirely annihilated, and the last king, Yazdegerd III, met his end.
Ferdowsi concludes this grand narrative with a haunting letter from a Persian general mourning the fall of his homeland. Now our crown is vanished, and the era of foreigners has arrived. It perfectly punctuates the end of an era, acknowledging the very real, physical loss of a once glorious civilization.
Which leads us to our final section, an eternal empire.
The physical kingdom of Persia fell to dust and changing borders. That's a fact. But Ferdowsi didn't write the Shahnameh to save borders. By capturing the soul of his people in the Persian language, he built an eternal empire of words that no army could ever burn down. So I want to leave you with this. We've traced thousands of years of triumphs and devastating tragedies today. But think about the core purpose of this absolute masterpiece. If your entire civilization vanished tomorrow, what story would you write to keep its soul alive?